think for me, transgenerational trauma has to come back to the stuff that's not seen. It's the stuff that sits under the surface that waits and waits and waits, and one day explodes out of a person with seemingly no reason at all.
Trauma that comes from generation to generation, and it could be passed on or it could be experienced, which a lot of generation of Aboriginal people have done in this country in the last over 200 years or so.
I can see it in my family, from my grandfather up to my father, and down to us, and even me passing some of that stuff down to my children. But hopefully my children can work through their own stuff and haven't been damaged enough so that they've got to pass it on to their children. It can get broken somewhere.
Trauma that's been handed down from the family, racism is a really bad. To me, transgenerational trauma is racism to the max.
I believe transgenerational trauma is about trauma that is experienced from one generation to the next, yet there isn't enough time to heal during that generation. What we actually then do is we change our behaviours to adapt to our hurts and our sorrow and our anger and all those things that have been experienced because of what has just happened to us. We don't have time to heal from that before the next trauma comes along.
I think it's different things to different people, but the teaching is that it's, I guess, unresolved wounds, or wounds that where the hurt hasn't been resolved, simply because you don't know that you've been hurt, and so you continue on practicing the behaviours that hurt causes to the generations to come.
All the past, all the wrongs that's been put on my parents, my family, may not be personally, but my community, my mob, and I believe we carry that too, because all the injustice that has been put on them, and we see their struggle, we still struggle that today.
There's two core things I think that really come into it. One is post-traumatic stress disorder, and one is the psychological effects of colonisation, which is really oppression in the lived experience of it.
So it's when a person who has had their personality compromised or diminished or closeted or closed and put in a closet, and it goes from generation to the next generation to the next generation.
Remembered pain and suffering of a group. I really feel with the Aboriginal mind that tribal mind of being at one with each other is still very, very much there. So the trauma surrounds the whole group, and that is why it's so hard for an individual to break free from it, because every time they return back to the brothers or the sisters, something's always happening. And they feel it so deep in their being that it triggers the trauma again, and it triggers the wound and the pain.
For me, the feeling word is painful, because that's where it goes deep to soul, and that's where a lot of the pain comes from, and that's where it's carried in our soul. It's like there's layers on us, and it's the hurt and the pain that we react to or work from, or live from, because we feel deeply. I just think as a culture we are connected a lot more to who we are, our feelings, our environment,